All right guys, today we're going to be looking at this thing. Look how tiny and cute that is. It's probably one of the cutest scooters that you can get from Genuine. This is the Genuine Buddy 125 from 2009. Let's check it out. Now if you are a subscriber to the channel, you'll realize that this is my second Buddy 125. And I have owned several scooters before, and I was a little bit unsure about the Genuine brand because I don't know much about it. It's a Taiwanese brand, not Chinese, and the last Buddy 125 I bought it cheap and I sold it cheap. One of the downsides of this company is that resale is terrible. This is the much sought after color from Genuine Buddy 125. It is a great looking color and it just looks fantastic. It is a 125cc, therefore you will need a motorcycle license to drive it. I think what I like about this Genuine and even the Genuine brands, they do make bikes that are extremely good looking. This has got that classic Italian styling, and it kind of resembles a Vespa in a way, but it's a very small Vespa. For a 125, it is very, very tiny. 125cc basically means you can go about 60 miles per hour. And on this, it's not necessarily a good thing. So up front, you have a 10-inch tire. So this is one of the limitations, but also one of its most popular features is the small tires that it has, a 10-inch tire. Now a lot of bikes have 12 inches and that seems to be a little bit more stable. The Honda Elite that I have has got 12 inches and it does create a little bit of a more stable ride. 10 inches gives it a very peppy style of riding that's very fun to have on a scooter. So if you haven't ridden a scooter, you should try one of these small wheeled scooters before you get the large size wheeled scooters. You have a 2-pot front brake caliper, you have disc brakes, you have very nice wheels, you have a really large fender. It's extremely well behaved, it brakes well, like the controls on it are not as great as Honda quality. One of the things I like is that the floorboard on this is flat, but it's got a little bit of a curve to it. Now when you sit on it, you don't really have a lot of space to kind of move your feet because of the style of the scooter. It's a very short scooter. The wheelbase is very short, making this bike extremely fun to ride, but also if you're physically a very large person, sitting position is comfortable. This bike is extremely comfortable. You got ample padding in the seat, but notice that my knees to the front, there's only, what, 3 inches? Very short distance, which is to be expected. Not a lot of foot space. You know, if you did long rides, you couldn't really like stretch out your feet. I guess you can kind of put it up here, but your feet is meant to like come over here. As a grocery getter, you can't put stuff at the base here because it's flat, and you do have a hook here, so you can put a grocery bag here and then carry your groceries. Really like a bike for a very large rider. So if you're over 6 feet tall, you might want to consider something that's a little bit physically a little bit larger. One of the things I do like about this is that the styling of this is excellent. This whole area is very well designed. Now they don't give you a trip meter, which is kind of a hassle, and you have an odometer. This one's got 9,000 miles and it's got a gas gauge. So if you don't get a trip, of course you'd have to get that. But I've seen scooters without anything at all. But this is entirely covered up, and in a way it's a bad thing because nowadays people want to mount their phones, they want to mount their GPSs, and I'm one of those people. And I would appreciate some sort of way to mount a GPS onto here so I wouldn't have to figure out a way to attach it to this, which tends to be very flimsy and it kind of bounces around a lot. If you watch my SH150 videos, you'll see the windscreen bouncing everywhere because I have a GPS mount, and I don't particularly like that. So on this right side, you have a very interesting grip that I've only seen in Genuine. It's almost like a pistol grip sort of grip, and it is nice. This is where the throttle is. It works well. It's a little bit of a harder rubber than I would like. I think it is a nice style. Here's your run. On my last genuine, the white parts actually kind of were rubbing out. It was as if they painted it with a marker, but these are holding much better. You do have a hazards button here, so in case you break down, and then of course your starter. It is electric start, and you have your brake right here. Things you'll notice is that there is a little bit of a skip in quality when you get these bikes. They don't feel quite as cheap as the Chinese ones, but they do feel much cheaper than the Japanese. And one thing I really like is having like a feel to the quality of materials. And this one doesn't give you that, but it is a very inexpensive bike for the money. You also have your turn signals mounted right up top here, and that is nice in case you drop it. These are very cheap and easy to replace. On the left side, of course, you have your rear brake, you have your high beams, you have your turn signals, and then your cancel, and then you have your horn. The horn on this is incredibly good. Just listen to this horn. So one of the things I like is that it's got this pocket here. So in addition to the grocery bag hook, you have this pocket that's pretty large. You can fit like a water bottle here. This actually goes pretty deep in here. This one's a little bit shallower because of the ignition, but this I can put almost like a full-size bottle. Look at this, 12-volt socket. This is something that my Hondas from 2010, which are newer than this, do not have. This is something I do appreciate about this bike. And the old one that I had also had that. The Kimco 500 also had that. None of my Hondas have it, or none of them come standard, I should say. It's an incredibly important thing these days because everybody's got a phone that they need charging, and that's why you want that there. That's connected to the ignition instead of the battery. This windscreen, which is kind of funny, it's mounted on the mirror bolts, and it kind of comes up. Very easy to adjust. You know, so the mirrors, I'm not really into these mirrors, but they do go with the design of the bike. But this is kind of an incredibly good windscreen for this, and it's not too big. So the SH150 that I have, the windscreen is massive because I rode in the winter, and having something really large really helps. But this one is cute at the same time and very functional. I have ridden it in very cold temperatures, and just keeping the wind off of you does matter if you're a commuter. And it's very easy to adjust because you have all of these bolts here. You can kind of like lift it up a little bit and adjust it. You can even take it from bike to bike. That is how easy this windscreen is. This is a genuine windscreen, so it was made for this bike and a very pricey item. Now this bike, even this, so this is like the typical chrome finish, but it is kind of like a foil that they put, so it's not real chrome. You can see it's been dropped here. There's a little bit of crack here in this plastic. But one of the things I like about the design is that there's a little bit of a top lip to the headlight that gives it a kind of like a very nice swooping curve over the speedometer. This is, of course, plastic. The headlight is not particularly great. It's not expected to be, but it does the job. Right over here, you have the front cover. This is a very easy thing to remove. You just have this, and it kind of pops out. Now, you have these two things here that I wasn't sure what they were, but you can pop these out. They're holes, and what that is, it's actually a very cool feature this bike has. You can put a rack here, so if you want to carry stuff in the front, you can do that. And there's one rack that you can actually kind of flip up when it's not in use, but it looks really good. So on the lower part, you have these strange lights that are not really connected. So if I turn it on, you'll see nothing happens. And the reason for this, I guess, in Europe, this would be your blinkers. Of course, in the United States, we have these blinkers. I believe that the law says that like they have to be a specific height. So here they are. but there is a kit apparently that you can get both of these to turn on and blink at the same time. You can even do like these as running lights, but I think it's kind of interesting that Genuine decided to just leave it here. There are bikes, including my Honda Elite, that do have slots for turn signals down here, but they developed plastic specific for the United States market. If you ever need to change your spark plugs or get to the head of the engine, very easy to reach. Everything is very easy to work on this bike. And here, this would be where your passenger would put her feet. Now here's something that's very interesting, and you do get a lot more for your money with Genuine than you do at Honda. You have a kickstand standard, and you have a center stand. So it comes with both. Most scooters, when you buy them, are only going to have a center stand. For Genuine and a lot of Chinese scooters, you have a kickstart optional, or actually standard. So this bike is electric start, but they give you a backup Kickstarter. A lot of people won't use it, but it is nice if your battery ever stops working. You could always kickstart your bike. And of course, this is where your airbox goes. A lot of the Chinese parts are interchangeable with this. The rear, it's got a pretty nice bright LED tail light and the two little blinkers. This looks a little bit on the cheap side, but it goes with the design. This one suffered a little bit of an accident, as you can tell. And one of the things that happens with these bikes is that foam rack goes on here. What happened with this particular scooter is that these bolts actually broke off. So we had to re-weld the way for the screw to kind of bolt onto there. When you have the rack and it attaches here, what tends to happen is that people tend to overload the little trunks with stuff and it breaks off. And that's what happened with this bike. So here is the rack, and what happens is like it attaches like this and like that. But what people don't realize is that you also need this bolt to support the weight of the rack. And what happened with this is that somebody cut the rack that supports the bolt. So this has to be fixed. So you cannot put a lot of weight when it's like this. To open the seat, you push in and push to the side. And check out the storage. It's actually got quite a bit of storage. And it's surprising. The first time I saw this, I realized how useful these were. This is a 125, so it is a little bit of a bigger engine, so I am expecting a little bit of storage, but usually the bigger the engine, the less storage you generally get. Have is enough storage to put a full-size helmet, and you have your tools here. And look at this, if you undo this bolt, you have access to the carburetor. You have a drum brake that you can adjust right here just by twisting it, and it will bring in the lever. You know, the seat itself is very comfortable, but the thing about this bike is that the ride quality is very harsh. Let's start this thing and let's hear it run. Remember, this is carbureted, it's not fuel injected. So turn on the key, push in a brake, start it right up. I haven't started it in quite some time. This is kind of typical, the carburetors. It doesn't have an enricher or a choke, it just goes. But after some time, it kind of calms down a little bit with its movement. One of the dangers is when it's moving like this and you have it on the center stand, don't like just push it off because it'll just move forward. So make sure you grab your brake and push it off like this because it does tend to move. And there we go. It is now not spinning. That is the normal idling. It doesn't take very long to get up to speed. The light is on, but because of the low idle, if you twist it, and that's the high beams. So if you sped it up, you can kind of, most of the time when you change a rear tire on scooters, you do have to remove the entire exhaust. but it's usually very easy to do. It is a great bike. It is very reliable. Honestly say that carburetor bikes have a little bit more character than fuel injection bikes. Riding this thing and then riding my Honda Elite feels absolutely different. This one's got tons of character. I know that it's not a Ducati or Vespa, but Genuine does have like a certain je ne sais quoi that's really cool. Riding it, you do feel like you're riding something special. The carburetor makes it seem very, very peppy, and because of the tiny little wheels, it makes it a very fun ride. And it's so small that you can park it anywhere. You know, in the DC area, it's very difficult to find parking, but this looks like a tiny little scooter. It's a 125, so technically you do need a license in this area, and you can get over 100 miles to the gallon on it. It's an incredibly good machine, and you can get these so cheap because people generally get these brand new, and then after a while, what happens in this area, they move out. You know, DC is a very transient place, so you get these extremely cheap. I got this from somebody that worked for the FBI, and she, you know, rode it into work, and then, you know, she came and moved out of the area and of course needed to sell it, so I picked it up from her. And of course, people usually drop them, so you're gonna find things with like little rashes here and there. But the plastic and everything for these is very, very cheap. It's not like it's as rare as getting a SH150 or Honda Elite 110 where the plastic was only made for a year in the United States. So this is an extremely fun bike, very cheap. So if this probably would make a great first bike for a lot of people. If it wasn't for the motorcycle license requirement, this would probably be a little bit more popular. They do have a Buddy 50, which doesn't require the license, but I kind of feel that this is a little bit safer, having a little bit more power. When you're riding this, in a way, it does feel like it has too much power for the little wheels. And I think a lot of people would probably change the suspension on it, because in this area, all of these potholes send this bike flying. And I do like it. The motor on this is extremely good. The only issue I'm having with this particular one is I believe it's the sliders that are worn, or it could be the belt. But one of the interesting things about scooter life is that it's very cheap. While the motorcycle riders that get bikes and are addicted to farkles, they spend thousands upon thousands modifying their bikes. You could be a guy that buys one of these as a fun kind of like weekend toy, and you're spending maybe a few hundred in the entire life of this bike just buying little parts here and there. So the price differences for people who like to tinker with a scooter is a lot less than a motorcycle, and of course a lot less than a car. Now in DC, I found that there's a very vibrant community of scooter riders, and they all love the Genuine Buddy. Like, they rave about this bike, and even the scooter people they're completely open to riding with people that have this, because it looks so similar to a cute little Vespa. And I think the communities generally are going more into the scooter life. I think people are kind of tired of motorcycling and getting speeding tickets, so that's why I like scooters. It keeps my speed down. They are just as fun. It's just a different type of fun, and I do really recommend people to get scooters. You know, I like motorcycles, but I also like scooters, mopeds, and I think I'm always going to keep a scooter. Now, when I'm looking at my Honda Elite 110 and the SH150, there's such a big difference. Like, this one's got so much more character. The Japanese scooters that I have, they don't have that sort of je ne sais quoi that this has. This one does have that quality. It turns heads. A lot of people love it because it is a cute shape, it's a cute color, and yeah, people just really are into these bikes. So it's like we have to fill this hog up. This bike is perfectly good for this though, because it's so tiny. Today's a perfect day for camping too. These guys are having fun. This bike looks so good in that reflection of that RAV4. Look at that. So cute. I mean, I'm almost maxing it out. I wonder if they did work to this thing. It is really pretty darn fast. I'm at 60-something miles an hour. 65 miles an hour. This thing is almost as fast as my SH150. I really like it. This is a 2009 Genuine Buddy 125. So this is my second one, and I really enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'm going to see you in the next video.